What's up, guys? So today is day 2 of our split, and today is going to be quads, hamstrings, and calves. So now this program, this 10-week program called Rebuilt, is based off my own training style, and considering the fact that I've been through the car accident and all the injuries I've had to learn to do legs a little bit different. I have to be smarter. I just can't throw a ton of weight on my shoulders, you know, do these big heavy squats. I crushed both my femurs, I got knee damage, I broke my hip, so I've got to be smarter about it. And so what I do is very similar to what we just did in the last workout, which was shoulders, which is starting with a lot of isolation work first, going ahead and pre-fatiguing the muscle, getting, you know, that mind-muscle connection, really feeling it, and then moving on to a compound movement. So what we're going to do first is we're going to start with a superset, just like we did in shoulders yesterday, some supersets here to move through our workout, get it done quick. We're going to start with hamstrings, an isolation exercise for hamstrings, and then the same thing for quads. So for hamstrings, we're going to start with a lying leg curl. Now, sometimes you just got to improvise. What we're doing here is because we don't have a seated or lying leg curl machine yet. They ordered one. It's coming into the gym here soon. So we're improvising here, and when you go into a different gym, that's what you got to do. So we're taking the seated row machine here. We got a strap that we're going to stick our feet in, and we're going to do a lying leg curl here. Now, what I like to do when I'm doing these seated, usually I prefer seated, and here's why. Your hamstring is a polyarticulate muscle, which means it crosses 2 joints. It crosses your knee joint, it also crosses, you know, the back of your hip here. So by leaning forward slightly, you're stretching that muscle and you're putting it in an optimal position for a peak contraction. A relaxed muscle is really hard to contract. So you want to give it a slight stretch, so I like to lean forward. We can do the same thing on this, so instead of laying flat here, what we're going to end up doing is leaning over the front of this just a little bit. So it's going to be that forward bend. Same rep structure and set structure as yesterday's shoulder workout. We're going to start with our recruitment set, which is 20 reps, so we start light. Go ahead and get that muscle engaged, get that burn, and then we'll move into sets 2 and 3, our working sets of 10 reps, finishing off with 15 reps. Our burn set. So now another thing that you want to focus on when you're doing your hamstring curls, whether you're doing lying or seated or you're improvising like we are here, you want to try to keep your calves as relaxed as possible, because your calf also crosses, your gastrocnemius crosses the knee joint, and so when you really flex your calf tight, it also can assist in this a little bit. So you want to try to keep your feet in a nice relaxed neutral position. All right, so first set. Then we're supersetting back and forth between the curl and an extension. What I like to do is I've already moved the seat all the way back as far as I can, and here's why. Instead of sitting straight here, upright, and anchoring myself in, I actually like to lean as far back as I can. And that's because one of the muscles in your quad, your rectus femoris, again, like our hamstrings, is polyarticulate. It's the one out of the 4 that crosses your hip joint. And so in a seated position like this, you're actually shortening the muscle, putting it in a more relaxed position, makes it harder to contract. So by leaning back, we're putting in a better position to get a peak contraction. So leaning back, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna squeeze out. We're gonna do 20 of these. Now here's the thing, with legs, your hamstrings, your quads, and your glutes really are designed to all work together in concert. So when you're doing lunges or whether you're doing squats, they're all working at the same time. And that's actually stabilizing the knee joint. Now when you do something like this, an isolation exercise, this is awesome for isolating your quads, but it's not great for stabilizing your knees. So you have to be really careful here. You don't want to bounce the weight. Nice, slow, steady rhythm. Don't hyperextend it. You just got to take your time and be cautious, but it's an awesome isolation exercise. It'll make your quads burn, and we're going to 20.
And again, this is not a super heavy exercise at its best. A lot of shearing motion on the knee, which is why you go for that contraction, that smooth controlled movement. And that avoids a lot of the issues. A lot of exercise physiologists do not like leg extension for that reason. But it's putting such great overload on the muscle that it has its place.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, obviously,
so as long as you're cautious with it, this is a great exercise. The problem with most people is they go ahead and they bounce it. They bounce it at the top and they bounce it at the bottom.
You gotta do this.
They do that. They get that bounce. And look, your tendons are almost like rubber bands, right? You can get that rebound effect and it makes you a lot stronger. You can bounce that muscle back up halfway. You don't want to do it. Nice steady rhythm. So even though a lot of sports medicine doctors don't like this exercise, there's nothing that's going to isolate your quads like this.
Because it's moving at that one motion.
So we're going to do two different exercise superset. We're going to do a stiff-legged deadlift, and this is going to work your hamstrings. Now when you're doing this, it's the same reason we talked about on either a seated leg curl, leaning slightly forward, or doing it the way we did it, laying down, where we were leaning forward, we were creating that stretch in our hamstrings. This is the same thing. What we're doing is you're almost using your hamstrings like a brake to slow that weight down as you come down. This, you really want to focus on that eccentric or that negative. Now a lot of people confuse a stiff-legged deadlift with a regular deadlift. If I were to do a regular deadlift, I'm literally bending, dropping my ass back, and I'm pulling straight up. This is a stiff-legged deadlift. So this is a hamstring exercise versus a regular deadlift, which is going to work your quads, your glutes, and your hamstrings. So I like to keep my feet in a fairly neutral position, about the width of my clavicles. I don't lock my knees, but I keep my legs slightly, just a slight bend in them. Not like this, just kind of like loose knees is the way I like to describe it. You're going to keep the bar close to your leg the entire time. Along your shin, straight back. Right when you feel that point where your hamstring's really stretching, you bring it back up.
Now notice when he's pulling back, I mean, he might not even thinking about this, but when he's dropping the bar, you can almost tell he's pushing his butt out rather than bending at his waist. Focusing your mind on your butt going out. Now I'm not saying squat, I'm saying while keeping your legs in the position with a slight bend, focus on that. It will definitely keep a lot of pressure off your back, at least mentally. But you can tell his form's on point with that.
So we're doing the same thing that we did before. First set, recruitment set, 20 reps. Instead of talking, I should be doing the superset, which is walking lunges. Now there's two ways to do a walking lunge depending on what you want to target. I want to target my quads, not my hamstrings. If I want to target my hamstrings, I'm going to take a really long stride like this. And then I'm using my hamstring literally to pull myself forward. This is the opposite. I want to target my quads. So it's almost like a squat, really. Stepping forward, shorter step, and I'm coming straight down. See, I've got 90 degrees right here, my thighs parallel with the floor, and straight back up, down, and straight back up. This is brutal because it's 20 reps each leg. Some people say, well, why do these? If the motion is similar to doing a squat, why do these? And the answer is because I only have to pick up half as much weight.
It's like a single leg squat.
It's a single leg squat. The other thing too, you notice that Marc's putting more weight on his toes. That's targeting more of his quads. If he was trying to work his hamstrings, he would go wider and he would push into his heel more.
Well, if you step forward more,
you're going to do it no matter what.
Yep.
So that's my reason for doing these. It's getting that action like you would in a squat without having to load a bunch of weight on my body. Okay, so this is going to be the weight for set 2 and set 3, 10 reps. Same exact technique, don't compromise form just because you're going heavier. All right, so again, supersetting back and forth. Now we're going to move on, go up a little heavier in weight, and instead of 20 reps, we're doing 10 reps of walking lunges. All right, so this is our 5th and final exercise for our quads and hamstrings and glutes before we move on to calves. This is kind of a superset in itself. I like to break the range of motion down into 2 parts. So what I do is I start lighter and I start midway and ass to the grass, and it's halfway back up, right here. So you have to go lighter with that because that's your weakest part of the range of motion. Now your strongest part of the range of motion is going to be from halfway to the top. So that's where we'll finish off with the remaining 10 reps where we put on more weight. So you're taking advantage, you have a natural strength curve, and so we're trying to add resistance to follow that natural strength curve because a lot of people can't get enough weight for that top of range of motion and yet still be able to press it from the bottom into the range of motion.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. So you just do 10 and 10.
10 and 10.
This just finishes off the legs, every part of them.
So this is going to be everything. This is going to be your hamstrings, this is going to be your quads, this is going to be your glutes all together. So we're jumping into calves now. We're only doing 2 exercises. We're going to follow the same set rep structure that we've been following, 20, 10, 10, 15. What we're going to do here is we're going to superset between 2 different types of exercises. The first is going to be on leg press machine, which actually mimics a donkey press. So you see a lot of old pictures of like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You'd see him, you know, bent over with, you know, someone on his shoulders.
Franco on his back, girls on his back. I was going to get on your back.
So he's getting a good stretch back there, and that's really the advantage of it. So we're going to do it on the leg press machine, which really mimics that. And then we're going to superset with a seated calf raise. Now, the reason for the 2 different exercises is because your gastrocnemius, which is the one that looks like an upside down butt or a heart.
Yeah, I like butt.
Boobs.
Boobs, butt, heart. Looks like a lot of things.
So you've heard me talk about polyarticulate muscles, same thing. It crosses your knee joint. So by sitting down and putting your leg at a 90-degree angle, you're actually relaxing that muscle because the tendon originates up here. So you're relaxing the gastrocnemius, and that allows you to focus more on the soleus, which lies underneath the gastrocnemius. So seated is to focus on the soleus, and then when we go over and we do it on the leg press, you're going to work both the soleus and the gastrocnemius. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start over on leg press, 20 reps, then we're going to come over here, 20 reps.
Sweet.
Look at this exercise, a perfect example. You know, where there's a will, there's a way. You know, we didn't have a seated calf raise machine. Most people would say, I don't have one. They're always looking for an excuse or reason not to do something. Look for a way to do it. Find a way.
So that's day 2, man.
That's day 2. That is quads, hamstrings, glutes, and calves. And we are done.
Dude, so you see there was no leg press. Squats weren't super heavy, but I'll tell you what, I think we both felt it. And what I'm feeling now is the urge to shower. So we will see you on back day.
Back day.
That's day 3, guys. Thanks, James, once again. Rebuilt, 10-week trainer. You can do it as long as you want, though, because it's epic. That's not a game. The thing I like about this, people are gonna really take home some good advice.